Discovering possibilities and potential with passion every day. This is a TPPN production. Welcome to the iPad Possibilities Podcast, episode number 81. Why have two? Welcome, and my name is Tim, and I am the host of this podcast, the iPad Possibilities Podcast, where I and guests discover and talk about different possibilities and potential that are available to the iPad now and perhaps in the future. So it's a big open-ended show about what you can actually do with this iPad. And today is going to be a rather exciting show as it's going to discuss why it might be beneficial to have more than one iPad. And for those looking for some reasons why it might be a good thing to have, this is going to be the resource and show and episode for that. So before we get to all that, let's get to some announcements and some things I've been discovering over the past few days. So let's get into updates of the week, right? So the first is Uzu. Now, Uzu is a fantastic application. I did an entire episode on this a couple weeks back, so you can check that one out to find out why I love it so much. I did 20 minutes just talking all about Uzu. But they have an iPhone application now, Uzu Mini, I believe it's called, and you can check that out if you want Uzu on the go, if you're on the go without your iPad, right? So some other things I just wanted to share is that I'm working on many episodes coming up here. So what all am I working on? I'm working on an entire episode based on Dropbox, some of the amazing integrations I've been discovering as I've used my iPad, and just different ways Dropbox can be utilized on the iPad. So that episode is coming. That's what I'm very excited about and very excited to share with everybody because it's a great tool, and I think it needs to be talked about as far as where are the integrations there. I'm also working on a database episode similar to what I did in the journaling episodes. I'm going to be looking into all the different database applications and reviewing those and going over those, as well as doing a complete FileMaker Geek Out episode where I get some FileMaker geeks and hardcore users and talk about how the iPad has revolutionized the way they use FileMaker. And I'm also be discussing Notarize. I apparently left that one out as far as PDF annotations. And I'll be doing a screencast on Goodreader to give everyone a look at what it will be like to, use Goodreader as a reading experience, as well as the annotation stuff. So that's what I'm working on. I'm also working on a back-to-school iPad episode with, how you can use your iPad in a school situation. So that is what I am working on right now. And I wanted to share another thing that I came across a couple days ago from a listener, one of the premium listeners I have in Japan. So he's a scientist in Japan, and he actually is the reason that the PDF annotation episode came to life. And he sent me a little note that, hey, he got the iPad pillow, and they actually shipped it for free to Japan. So I wanted to just highlight that Gadget Freeway is an awesome company, that they'll actually ship stuff to Japan. And the iPad pillow, it was advertised it's free shipping, and they actually did that. And most places just go to America for free shipping. They are really going all out with serving the customers and doing the best they can to provide a great experience. So I just wanted to highlight that before we move on to the show, that they're doing some cool stuff over there. So just check out gadgetfreeway.com, a very cool company. And with that, let's move on to the main content of the day, and that is having and using two iPads. So the concept for this episode is that there are limitations with using an iPad and just one iPad. And many of those limitations go away when you start to add in a second iPad. So the concept here of this show is to just simply share what the limitation is of having a single iPad when working and when using an iPad, and how a second one might alleviate many of those problems. And I have often been asked, what is the purpose? Why would anybody in the world need or be able to use two iPads at the same time? So that is what today's episode is all about. Basically opening your eyes to the possibilities of multiple iPads. So the limitation, here we go, the limitation of just a single iPad It's pretty obvious, and many people probably already know what it is. You only have a single screen to work with. And even when multitasking is enabled through jailbreaks or with iOS 4 in the fall, you still have what I call unitasking, right? With the iPhone 4, you have so-called multitasking. With Android, you have so-called multitasking. But I really believe, and in my heart, I really believe this, that there is not a single device that is made to this day that multitasks with a single screen with the interface of a single window at a single time. It is my belief that if you only have one window open to you at a time, such as you do on Android devices, on the iPhone, because you don't have the screen real estate to do that, and with the OSs, they're designed for that, you have a single window. It's a single window, single application environment. And in that environment, there's no way to multitask. You may be able to run audio in the background, but that's not really multitasking. Multitasking is being able to see and do two things at the same time. And even when iOS 4 comes out for the iPad, you will still have this limitation, and you'll still have that single screen to work with. Now, it is my hopes that Apple will enable true multitasking on the iPad, having a split screen interface for more than one task at a time. But until that day comes, there is not a single way to do this. There's not a single way to multitask on any mobile operating system. I don't care what platform it is. It hasn't been done yet. Android, you don't have it. iOS 4, you don't have it. Jailbroken stuff, you don't have it yet. So that's the limitation of any mobile platform that's running a mobile OS for multitasking. And this limitation, this problem, goes away very quickly once you start to add a second device. So, how can you use two iPads? Might be the next question. I haven't had a use case episode in a long time. Those are some of my favorite episodes where I say how you can use your iPad. Well, this show will have many use cases and many ways you can simply use two iPads. What are the benefits? Where would you yourself use this? So that is what this next segment is all about. And let's get into the first one. Well, the first one is one that I use constantly. It's one that I use every day, every night. It's something that just is always done with my multiple iPads, my two iPads. So the first one is video playback on an iPad, your first iPad, while web browsing or working on the other one. And with this, your iPad becomes a TV. So you have your video playback enabled iPad, right? They both do video, but you have your one that you're using for, your TV watching, your movie watching, and that becomes your TV now. Your just portable TV, while the other one becomes your PC, your personal computer, where you're actually working, you're actually surfing the web, and you're actually doing things that aren't static as movie watching is. You're able to be interactive, you're able to do things on that other device. So the first one is using your one iPad as your TV, right? While your other one becomes your computer. So two different ways that you need two screens to do this. And that's where having two iPads really comes in handy. And if with the different cases, they can easily be propped up, so you can just have one on a stand or whatever to watch video on while you're working on the other one. And many people like to have this, like to have video playing in the background. They like to have that as just an ambient thing, just playing in the background, and that is what a second one will provide for you. Use case number 2. So use case number 2, here we go, is as a student, as someone that writes papers, it is often essential to have a reference screen, a screen that you can have up, open to Wikipedia, open to a website, open to whatever it is, a reference screen, right? You have your reference screen when you write code, you have a manual up when you write code, you have something on the screen as reference. And this is used all of the time in desktop operating systems. You pretty much constantly, if you're working, have this reference screen open and available to you. And then you'll use the other iPad here to write a paper, to get the work done, to get the content inside of the machine. And that is what the second use case is. It's similar to the previous one where you need one as a kind of static image, a reference image, and the other is for your work. It's for getting stuff done. And this I used back in April when I was writing papers. I had the one iPad as my reference screen. I had my Wikipedia information there. I had my, encyclopedias up, my web pages up that I used for reference, and then I typed on the second one. It's a very makes sense to do. You have one iPad in your keyboard dock and one available to you for reference, for looking up information, for having your outline. And that is something that is going to be really a helpful thing for many students and people that do that kind of work. So that's use case number 2 of having 2 iPads. Now, on to the third way you can use multiple iPads. And this is just another paradigm that we've always had with the traditional PC or Mac. And that is a true multi-screen setup that many are used to with traditional computers. So basically, the concept is here, you want more than one window. So you can have 2 Safari windows open at once. You can have a photo editing application open on one and have something else open on the other. And that's the second use case here. You want this true multi-screen setup. You can do that with multiple iPads. You can have this kind of circle around you of different screens that you're manipulating and working with. And you can do photo work that way, you can do paper work that way, you can do whatever it is. You can do just whatever you need a true multi-screen setup for. This is what a second one or even a third one would afford to you. And that's a very cool thing. Now, another kind of side one of this is you could use one of your iPads for air display, right? So you have that iPad taken up for using as an external monitor for your Mac, and then the other one is just used as an iPad for whatever you need to use it for. So that's another, 3B, use case of multiple iPads. Now, the fourth one is a bit different and a bit more just crazy and something that not a whole lot of people would understand. But this next one's kind of different. You have one iPad that you just leave open all day for your Wii Rule and Wii Farm screen. So in that application, in that game, it's all time-based. So if you just have an extra one that's just lying underneath your desk in the keyboard area or whatever, you can have that open with Wii Farm, and every few, half hour or so, you just open your desk drawer and see, hey, I need to, pet the goat, right? Or whatever it is. You need to harvest things. And having that second one there just solely to use for that is you'll get more work done in that in that application, which is just a random one that I thought, hey, I should include this because this is something I have been doing as of recently for my second iPad. I've been just having Wii Farm up all the time, and just in a desk drawer, and then just open the desk drawer every now and then and see, hey, is there anything I need to do here? And sometimes there is, sometimes there not. But that's one way you can use your second iPad. Use case number 5. And we're now moving to something more extreme, not more extreme, but more, I think this will attract many more people to the idea of having more than one, right? Having multiple iPads. And this one is the screen options available to you with more than one. So with laptops, right, you have the ability to have matte screens or anti-glare. And you have to choose between the two. With the iPad, you're only given the option of glossy, right? That's what you get. And I also have an anti-glare protector on one of those. So the idea here is you have the ability to choose what type of screen you want to use based on how you're using your iPad. You may find that you like the glossy screen in some circumstances. You like the feel of the real glass, touching the actual screen. But in many other use cases, many more actually, you might use this one 90% of the time because you like this anti-glare iPad, right? So the use case here is you have one with the anti-glare protector. I got mine from Gadget Freeway, and it's a phenomenal protector. I don't notice that it's on there. It's out of the way. I don't have fingerprints anymore. I don't have to worry about the sun anymore. I don't have to worry about, where I use it. I can be using it anywhere. It's a great screen still. I can read it beautifully, and all the wonderful iPad screen goodness is still there, while getting rid of some of the annoyances of the glossy. But the options you now have available to you with two are you have your anti-glare screen and you have your glossy screen. And you can choose between the two. What do I want to use today? What circumstance is this best used for? Is this better used for the glossy screen right now because of where I'm at? Do I want the regular screen now? You have the option now to choose what screen you want based on where you're going to be, what you're going to be using it for, and that is something that many people might really enjoy. Because many people may enjoy that glossy screen for a lot of things, but for many more things I've been finding is the anti-glare is the way to go. So if you're stuck between one or two, this is a way to alleviate that problem of picking, hey, do I want to have my iPad as an anti-glare or do I want it glossy? The options are very extensive with having to, and that's the first really big one. I think the other ones are really big too. The first one, video playback on the iPad while web browsing, is something I use to no end. So that is another big one here. The options of screen finishes here. Use case number 6, and this is a big one as well. And this is the great ability to have a jailbroken iPad and a non-jailbroken iPad. And this is an amazing thing to be able to do. So you have one jailbroken, so you have that experience, and you also have the Apple experience. So you're able to compare the experience between the two on a daily basis. You're able to have one perhaps faster and more stable under the non-jailbroken experience, and that can be, you can use them different ways. One can be a testing iPad for different applications, and a very cool thing coming up pretty soon here is, iOS 4 beta, right? When iOS 4 beta comes out, that's going to go on my non-jailbroken iPad, and you know what? I'm able to have the best of both worlds. I'm able to have iOS 4 installed while I also have 3 point whatever, installed on the jailbroken one. And that's essential because as I'm doing this podcast, and many other people may see a need for this, you want the jailbroken experience, but you want the iOS 4. You want that on it, but there's no jailbreak out for it. Or you want the traditional Apple feel of how it should be. How should this OS operate? And you're able to experience both of those. And one of those may be stabler than the other one, and that's what it's all about. You're able to have your options, right? You're able to have two OSs installed on different devices. You can have one as your test bed. You experiment on that one. You put it through the paces. And the other one is your standard install, your standard iPad install. So that is another big one that I have become dependent upon for doing this show and just having both experiences. I think that's an important thing to have. So moving on to the 7th one, and this is kind of goes right along with this jailbroken versus standard, is you now have a backup iPad, right? You now have one if your jailbreak just gets all screwed up, gets messed up, you get this endless reboot, you get some bad stuff happening. If you need to do a full restore and take 24 hours to upload your music back to it through iTunes and the conversion process and all of that, if you have to have an iPad down for the day, you now have a backup iPad. You will never be in a time where you don't have an iPad ready to use, even if you're not your main machine. So having a backup is, I think, pretty essential. It's like having your backup hard drive, right, with your Mac. If you have a bootable backup, you're able to still work. Now, this is like having a bootable backup of your iPad. You're able to work, you're able to continue using an iPad because you have this backup. So it goes right along with that jailbreak versus standard experience. And if you have both, you'll have a backup. You'll have something that you can use on both experiences, both days. If you need it, you've got it. It's a good way to be safe from failures and different things like that. So you have your backup with the second iPad. On to number 8. And this one is the entertainment iPad, right? The family room iPad. And this is a very cool scenario to have. If you have 2 of these, right, you're able to use one as your family room iPad for use in the family room, and also your entertainment system. You're able to have it hooked up to your big screen TV or a projector and use it for Netflix streaming. You're able to use it for air video, audio playback, whatever the case may be. You're able to use that second one as your entertainment device, your family room one that just stays there. It's always hooked up to the TV. You might have a wire running under your carpet, so it's just a convenient way to access your iPad just sitting next to you on the couch as your entertainment movie playing iPad. And that is a great use of a second iPad, right? A great use to have a second one, to use both, to have one for purely entertainment. It's loaded with all the movies in the world. It's loaded with Air Video, which does output to TV. It's loaded with Netflix, which does output to TV. And it's got all that. And it's going to be a great way to watch internet-based content on your TV. Use case number 9. And for podcasters out there, this one is for you. The scenario here is one to record. You have one iPad to record your shows on, to have your full processing power available to you to record your shows. While on the other one, you have your show notes, you have your demoing opportunities, you have that second one available to you to do all of those things, right? To have your organization needed to put on a podcast. And I think having 2 is essential for podcasting if you're going to do that on your iPad. And we're getting very close to the point where we're able to do this. We're able to podcast from an iPad. We're getting very close to that point. And I think the applications are right around the corner. We'll see iLife, I believe, really soon. We'll have an event pretty soon where we have iLife for the iPad. And that will be coming out, and that will open up the doors for why you need a second one. And that's another amazing use case for those that are podcasters and video producers and things like that. So that's use case number 9 for the iPad. Number 10, and we're on the number 10 here, and it is a way different one here. And this is, as you probably have heard, I love dictation. I love using voice entry and voice commands. And the use case here is have one iPad available to you as your dictation iPad. You just have Dragon Dictation open, a native iPad app. You type your paper by just speaking into your iPad, and while that's happening, you have your second one available to you to just browse the web, to research, to have as reference, to have as ideas you want to be talking about as you're dictating. So the idea here is you have one for that and one for the other thing. Now, this can also be done with using your iPhone to do the dictation, and your iPad to be used as your reference tool, your way to do that. So that is number 10, and that's one I love to use for my iPads. Now on to the 11th use case, and this use case is especially tuned for those that are in school still. So I understand when you're in school, you have a tighter budget, but here is a way that having 2 would really help things out. Besides the paper and reference thing here, you also have the ability to take notes on one of those while you're using the other one as a book. So you have all your books stored on your iPad. You want that up and open. You want that book open in class while you're taking notes. And you want to have both of those up. You want your notes up at the same time as your book. You can't do that right now, right? You're limited to one thing at a time. So with this, you're able to take notes on one while you're using the other one as your book, as your reference, right? You have iBooks open or whatever the textbook application open while you're taking notes on the other one. And that is a great one to think about. And I think we'll have many, cases designed for that same purpose of having one displayed for content and one displayed for taking notes, for working in. And this is kind of similar to some of the other ones, but this is highly tuned for that student that needs a second iPad. Okay. Now on to number 12, and this is out of 14, so we're approaching the end of different ways and different ideas about how we could use multiple iPads. And this goes back to the backup idea, the backup iPad. And this is a different way of it being backed up, is you have a fully charged iPad at the ready. You have one that kind of stays at home and you use at home, and then one for the road. So if you're using your iPad, all day, 12 hours a day while you're working, then you get back to the house and you want to have a fully charged iPad ready to go, and you don't want to have to worry about battery life. You can just have the second one docked and ready to be used when you get home. And when you get home, you just charge your second iPad, and by the time you go to bed and wake up in the morning, that other one is ready to go. So you basically have removable batteries with the second iPad, basically, right? You have the ability to have two batteries, two iPads to alleviate the problem if you're wanting to use your iPad 20 hours a day, right? If you're awake for 20 hours a day, you want to use it all that time, and you run out of battery life, that might be a reason to have a second one. And this is one I've done a couple of times. This has not happened to me a bunch because I have to be honest, the iPad has a phenomenal battery, and no matter how long I use it, it just doesn't die. So there have been times when this has happened where I've used it extensively, and that's been one great benefit of having a second iPad. And this goes to, you have one for the road and one for home. That's kind of the scenario here, and that's a great way to look at it. So that's that use case for using two iPads. So we're on to the 13th use case, and one more to go. So number 13 is with having two iPads. If you are a GoToMeeting user, if you use your iPad to go to meeting or any other of those tools, you will find it's a great experience for having GoToMeeting open, but the bad thing is you're stuck there. You're stuck in the meeting. That's all you have access to. That's all you can do. You can just be in the meeting, you can be talking in the mic, you can be listening to it and seeing the screen sharing and all of those amazing things that GoToMeeting offers. But on the other hand, you want to be taking notes during the meeting. You want to be playing during the meeting. You can't do that with one iPad. So with the second one, you can have the GoToMeeting iPad open while you're taking notes, or even playing and doing some other things that people might not want you to do while you're on your iPad. So having two fixes the problem, once again, of the single screen. So the single screen is the one big limitation that has arisen with this device. It hasn't arisen with notebooks or regular computers because of the way the operating system was designed. And having the second screen alleviates this restriction that many people encounter with having having one iPad, right? So with two, the restriction is lifted. So number 14, this is the final use case I have discovered as I've used my iPad on a daily basis, right? That I want one iPad to be used and opened up and operated in iTeleport mode. I want one to be remoting into my Mac, to be working on my Mac, to be used in that capacity. And I want the other one to be used in iPad mode, to be used as a regular iPad outside of iTeleport, outside of remoting into my Mac, and that is a truly phenomenal way to use that second one. That you have one, you're remoting into your Mac, you can basically have a Mac with that iPad and your regular Apple OS, iOS. So you have the option now of, once again, a second operating system through iTeleport. And that is the last way to have one, as you're remoting into it. You can actually have iTeleport hooked up to a big screen TV and basically have a mobile workstation that way. And then you can have your second one there for video playback, for iPad apps, for whatever it may be. But having two is a very essential thing for why you would need a second screen and a second iPad. So those are the 14 different use cases I've discovered as I've used multiple iPads on a daily basis as to why. Why on earth would you need a second one? Why on earth would anyone want more than one? And why would anyone want to hang on to their old iPad when they eventually get the brand new one next year. So those are the reasons why you would want to. Why would you used to? And I think many of those are very valid reasons for a lot of people out there. And another thing to mention is many cases are perfectly designed for transporting two iPads. So with the Griffin or the in-case convertible book jack, it's got that elastic strap around it, right? And if you have the Apple case for one of them and that one for the other, you can use that elastic strap to strap in your second iPad. So you can just carry both of them, and it feels like you're carrying one. So there's a lot of different cases actually designed and optimized for moving around and using both at the same time. I remember at PodCamp Ohio, I actually used both iPads, and I used that same scenario where I just strapped in. I had a water-filled sleeve to put both of them into, and at that one case, I just whipped them both out and used them, and it really came in handy during PodCamp because my jailbroken iPad, it crashed. It was out for a couple hours that day, and I had that backup iPad ready to go and ready to use, and I'll tell you, it was remarkable. And for, doing the podcast there, I had two iPads for, using show notes and using things like that. So having the multiple iPads has been something I've really enjoyed having, really enjoyed using. The biggest one for me has really been video playback at night on that, that one iPad while I'm working and reading, my Twitter stream on the other iPad. So having two really can change the way and manner you use your iPad on a daily basis. It's truly phenomenal what the second one can do. What this second one, just by having a second screen, what that opens up to you, what that enables you to do as a user of an iPad. You're no longer restricted by all of the mobile operating system's restrictions, including Android, including iOS. You're lifted from those restrictions by having that second screen and using both. And the cool thing with the iPad, the cases that are designed for these things make it so easy to use both at the same time. With all the stands built into these iPads, you can have it set up so it feels like it's really one iPad, but it's just separated. It's like you have a peripheral device. It's really remarkable how the cases industry has really opened up the ways we can use more than one. So it's very easy to use more than one at the same time and very doable, and something that once iPad 2 comes out, once that second generation iPad comes out, I truly believe many people will start to see the light, will start to see why would anyone want to? And I think that will start to be more mainstream in the next coming months as we see the revelation of the second generation iPad. So those are my thoughts on just why would you ever need or want or use multiple iPads at the same time? Well, let's move on to the feedback and closing sections here of the show. Now, as everyone I hope knows, you can leave your feedback and you can ask questions and you can send those all in to me. And I really enjoy the feedback. I want more of it. I want to hear from you guys. I want to know what you're thinking. What are your thoughts? What are your questions? What are your concerns? I want to hear from you. Send me that feedback. Send me those questions. And you can do that by calling in. Just use your iPhone, right? Just use your mobile phone, right? Your cell phone, and call in. And right now, pause it if you need to, rewind if you need to. Add this to your speed dial. Add this number to your speed dial or your address book. Add the iPad Possibilities voicemail number to that so you can call in more easily and just make it second nature. Once a week, I'm going to call in and leave my thoughts, leave my questions. Once a week, I'm going to call in and do that. So have this number, add it to your contact list. It's 209-542-iPad. And iPad is 4723, I believe. So 209-542-iPad. Pause the show right now. Add that number to your contact list and call in whenever you have questions, concerns, feedback. I want to hear from you. You can also email me at iPadPossibilities@gmail.com. For more information on this podcast, visit iPadPossibilities.com. And that's also a part of tppn.tv. And if you'd like to support this podcast, You can do so by becoming a premium member of the show. And that's only $2 a month, or if you want the full network and support us even more over at tppn.tv, it's $3.50 a month. So $2 or $3.50 a month. You choose your donation level and how you want to support this network and show. But if you go to tppn.tv, you can find out more information if you click the membership tab, or you can go to iPadPossibilities.com, scroll down, and just select the premium podcast. All the information is there. Very easy. It's all done through PayPal for monthly subscriptions that you can cancel at any time. And the main benefit here is, if you're an iPad Possibilities fan, if you want more content, you get it. You get 5 episodes every week. So Monday through Friday, you get a new episode every single day. So if you want a daily podcast, a daily iPad podcast, that's how you do it. I think I'm the only one that's doing daily shows for the iPad, pretty much. Weekends excluded, but daily content here. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you get audio shows. Tuesday, Thursday, you get iPad screencasts, my 10-minute video episodes that I do Tuesday and Thursday if you are a premium subscriber to this podcast. So 5 episodes a week for only $2 a month. That's, I think, a killer deal, and it's also one great way to show your support of this podcast. And also check out gadgetfreeway.com. They're a great company that supports this podcast as well. I'll have more information about them on the Friday, Saturday episode where I'll highlight some of the stuff they're doing. But that is how you support this podcast. And it's at tppn.tv and iPadPossibilities.com. And I wanted to close this show now with just saying you've been listening to the iPad Possibilities podcast on tppn.tv. This is Tim, and I will talk to everyone again next time.